Here's the important thing about Bolton's dismissal. It's the tone of President Trump's dismissal. It's clearly this is not amicable. We know that there have been huge divisions within the administration, most recently surfacing up over what to do about Afghanistan, more than just hosting the Taliban at Camp David. This got to the core of what President Donald Trump campaigned on, and that is getting out of foreign wars. We know that Bolton was a little bit more for staying there longer. We know Pompeo was on the other side of this. This is also a clear win for Mike Pompeo as he continues to consolidate power. Now, Bolton is the fourth national security advisor this president has had. Fourth or third or fourth. Let me correct myself here as I count them all up, but he is the fourth. So it's an indication of, yet again, more recycling at the top. And Andrea, this has long-term implications for a whole host of issues. That's Iran, that's North Korea, that's the Middle East peace process, that's Venezuela. John Bolton was integral in all those conversations. The president has often said that he liked Bolton's hawkish nature, and he almost liked to have the gamut, the spectrum of people there to make the case that he could always be more bellicose himself. But Bolton is out. We need to figure out just what the proximate cause is, and importantly, who will replace him and what it means for the direction of this administration and what it means for a whole host of issues across the globe. Andrea?
And, of course, Bolton almost auditioned for the job as a Fox News commentator, very vigorously against Iran, as is Pompeo. Yeah. So on that, they did not disagree. But he has been driving a lot of the action on Iran. Certainly was not comfortable with the president suggesting at the G7 that he would be willing to talk to Iranian leaders. You've got the UN General Assembly meetings coming up the week of September 23rd. So in 2 weeks, we're there in New York for the UN meetings. The president's giving a major speech on the 24th at the United Nations. And now his national security advisor has been fired. One other thing about John Bolton, I just wanted to point out, and I'm going to bring in Ned Price now on the phone, former special assistant to President Obama who worked at the NSC. The big difference between John Bolton and all of his predecessors going back in any administration that I've ever covered is he did not oversee the deputies' meetings. He did not convene other agencies. He operated unilaterally very frequently. So he was not factoring in the opinions of the Pentagon, of the CIA, of the State Department in decisions that he brought to the president. And that was one subject of a lot of criticism. Even when I was interviewing Dan Coates, somewhat famously now, in retrospect, last summer in Aspen, when that tweet went out from the White House that Putin, 5 days after the very controversial meeting in Helsinki with Vladimir Putin, that Putin was being invited to the White House. The intelligence community, the Secretary of State, had not been consulted. That was all the president, apparently in communication with Putin, to Bolton, directly to Sarah Sanders to tweet out the invitation, Hans, and without consulting anyone else in the national security team as to whether this was a good or a bad idea. Hans?
Yeah, in some ways, Bolton ran his own Defense Department, his own State Department. You'll recall the time when they announced this additional carrier strike group that was going to be heading to the Middle East. That didn't come from the Pentagon. That didn't come from the State Department. It didn't come from the president. It came from the national security advisors. So what you saw from Bolton was trying to put the pressure on the president, sometimes almost boxing him in to more bellicose positions, to more hawkish positions. This has been a fundamental tension throughout the Trump administration, and that is, to what extent is he going to be a traditional Republican and a traditional interventionist, and what extent is he going to be an isolationist? Trump's impulses on this are clear. He always wanted to draw down from Afghanistan. He always wanted to get out of certain wars. You saw that with Syria as well. The president wanted to bring down troops there. Even though President Trump criticized Barack Obama for what Trump said at the time was withdrawing from Iraq too soon. The question that should really be of the hour is, how fundamental is this split within the administration now? Or is it clear that the isolationists have won? And are there any counterweights to sort of this Bolton-Trump axis? We got a hint of one over the weekend, and that is that Mike Pence was on the other side of this Afghanistan decision. And don't forget, Mike Pence cannot be dismissed. He is a constitutionally ensconced vice president. So if he has disagreements with the president, those cannot be easily dismissed by simply firing the vice president. Again, this gives us a sense that these splits are real, that there's serious debate within the administration about the course of certain foreign policies, and we need to figure out just what that means and where across the globe. Remember, the president may be meeting with the Iranians. You mentioned the United Nations meeting next week. The president may be meeting with the Iranians. The North Koreans just last night suggested that they're willing to have a third or fourth meeting, depending on how you count the one that they had in the DMZ. That's after they sent projectiles into the ocean there. And then a question on what the next stages will be in the Middle East, especially with Netanyahu in Israel right now talking about annexing more of the Jordan Valley. So tumultuous time, different time, and now we potentially have a new advisor coming in to talk to the president. Guys.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.